Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, Shinrin Yoku, and Yurt Life, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Friday, February 2nd, 9 p.m. Mountain Time 2024. A sun-diving comet has evaporated as it approached the corona today. Take a look at this footage here from LASCO C3. And we also have extreme heavy snow coming for the West in the next 10 days. Keep calm. It's boom time. Happy Groundhog's Day. Puxatawny Phil did not see his shadow this morning on Groundhog Day 2024. What does that mean for you? It means an early spring according to the groundhog, and Puxatawny has been 36% correct, whereas the global warmists have been 5% correct. So I give my credence to Puxatawny Phil. Now, the unique thing is that Puxatawny Phil has only not seen his shadow on less than 10% of the days since the 1880s. What does that mean for us? Well, it means he's probably wrong and that spring is not coming early. But I do digress. Take a look at the data set here. It shows that almost every day on February 2nd in the early 1920s, Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow. And around 1970, things shifted. That was the Ice Age scare. And it seems that Puxatawny Phil has been seeing his shadow more and more through the 80s, 90s, and now the 2010s and the 2020s due to increased cosmic rays and the weakening of the magnetosphere, perhaps. Anchorage sets new record low as dangerous cold sticks around, buildings are collapsed, and snow totals are smashed. The desert could get nearly a foot of snow as temperatures drop and atmospheric rivers push inland. And take a look at the flooding here. A car sits partially submerged in a flooded road during the last rainstorm in Long Beach. But meteorologists are urging Southern Californians to prepare for the worst. Life-threatening flood potential from this new storm because it's much bigger and it's already flooded. In fact, the Pineapple Express sweeping California as an atmospheric river fuels storms and floods throughout the state. Tornadoes as well and heavy snow headed for the central U.S. The full forecast in just a moment. Up to 36 inches could fall in Colorado as widespread heavy snow moves into the state. We're seeing an active pattern for the western and southern U.S. with above normal temperatures across the central U.S. A storm system will continue to push through the intermontane west and the Rockies, bringing heavy snow and strong winds through Saturday. Scattered severe thunderstorms and heavy rain will occur this weekend across the south as well. And another storm system will arrive into California later this weekend, bringing heavy rain and an extreme flooding threat, heavy mountain snow and strong winds, so heed the warnings. And here we are taking a look at that GFS model as we watch that system move through and the second system move into central California early in the weekend here, creating heavy mountain snow, wreaking havoc with extreme flooding. And this is going to be Sunday into Monday for that extreme flooding event with severe weather in Northern California. The South is going to not be let out of the moisture here. Here we see Saturday and Sunday will be their fun day. Louisiana to the east through Florida through the end of the weekend into Monday morning. Heavy rain for the southeast as well as that system in the west pummels the west all the way east of the Rockies. It's looking like this system is really going to take action on February 7th as it bombs out in Southern California, where most of the heavy flash flooding will occur. Heavy snow for much of Nevada and Utah as it moves into the Four Corners region. It's going to be a deluge. Any snow existing will melt out with this rain. It's insane. Going to be hovering around the freezing point at around 8,000 foot in elevation, so it's going to be iffy. But behind it is cold air, and it's going to be all snow starting February 8th into the 9th, and that is going to really whip around for the Rockies as it brings heavy snow totals to the region. Take a look at this. Here is Friday into Saturday and Sunday. You can already see heavy snow throughout Colorado, Wyoming, into Utah, or into Idaho and Montana there, as well as the Sierra Spine. And then it's really going to kick up a notch here by the 7th and take a look at that snow, how it develops on the crest there. It's going to be developing here the 4th, the 5th, The 6th and the 7th, that is record snow. Could be 8, 10 feet in some areas. It's going to be avalanche warnings, flash flooding, landslides. Very bad news for California, but good news for the aquifers. As the climate alarmists claim there's no more moisture coming to California, they're going to get pummeled. Trust me. Mark my words. As well as the Four Corners region and the desert Southwest, it's looking like an entire year's worth of moisture in just the first 2 weeks of February. Could be a February to remember. And Europe is not out of the picture either. Take a look at the snow coming to the UK by February 9th. 16 inches in some regions where the global warming goodness has been denied by Al Gore, but yet the snow will continue. It also looks like a potential for some record-breaking snow here in the Alps moving into Western Europe. Eastern Europe, my bad. Looks pretty bad. But things are developing, and it's going to be an interesting February, to say the least. So stay tuned for more boom. As we move over to the seismic update, no quakes of note. A 3.5 just kicked off in Springerdale, Utah, very rare region there. We have a cacophony of activity down here in Texas, the nexus of the schmexus related to fracking. There was an uptick in seismicity, thousands of earthquakes over on the Big Island of Hawaii, but that has calmed off. So no eruption imminent, potentially there in Kilauea. But Kilauea volcano, here it is. Seismic unrest has slowed down with strong inflation at the summit going on. So there is still inflation, meaning an eruption will occur, but probably not spectacular. It's just going to be some lava, and everyone will go, ah. But we are waiting for the Reykjanes Peninsula to fissure erupt again near Grindavik as the seismicity is moving all around the island, unfortunately. Another flurry of activity 24 hours ago lifted an eyebrow, but nothing occurred, and we've gone quiet now in the last 6 or 10 hours. Hours of powers. Let's take a look at all regions on Iceland to make sure we're not missing anything, and we aren't. There is some activity in the south here at major volcanic systems. Some activity on the Tjörnes fracture zone, but the close eye is keeping a close eye on the Reykjanes Peninsula. Let's see if we can pull that up right here. How can I not find that? I know what that is. Because you can see the only 3 magnitude or greater has happened outside of the eruption zone, probably a 3.2 or 3. And this is in an area of worry that is much closer to Reykjanes than any other of the eruptive sequences. Space weather news update. A potential active sunspot region coming around the limb is hiding just beyond the southeast section of the sun, and it will begin to turn into the view later this weekend. GOES 16 X-rays is already detecting C-class flares from around the limb. Yeah, so that could be M-class if it was facing Earth or greater. So we do have an active region that could be of issue coming soon, but the sun as a whole, quite blank. Look at 3571 earlier today in the bottom left there. And let's look at the latest. I think that sunspot has since broken down. Yeah, no, it's looking about the same activity. This is the latest look at the sun. How fun. But the region we're looking at is still about to turn around the limb. Nothing spectacular on the surface. We are at solar max for cycle 25, and the sun has some pinprick sunspots, but nothing spectacular. In fact, the new updates for the month show a down cycle in sunspot cycle 25. But all the fearmongers that say, no, this is the greatest sunspot ever, they're saying that it's going to increase. Don't be worried it's going down. It's going to go back up, just like we all said. I doubt it. The 3-day geomagnetic forecast is pathetic with barely aurora in sight. And, well, cross your fingers if you think something's coming around the limb, Mr. Davidson. SOHO shows that sun-diving comet that took 3 days to make its way from here all the way to destruction point just moments ago as it entered the corona of the sun. How fun that is. So it was such a tiny comet, it really didn't have any space weather effect, but fun to show nonetheless. as a potentially hazardous asteroid passes Earth today. You can look at it on many live streams. A football stadium-sized asteroid passed Earth just moments ago. And because of its size and how close to Earth it's coming, NASA scientists were monitoring it for any potential danger, which there was none. It was, in fact, 1.7 million miles from the planet, around 7 times further than the moon, and traveling at a speed of 11 miles per second. Now, if that hit your garage, you'd probably wake up in the middle of the night, according to experts. How do you like them apples? Do you know why it's called the Arctic and the Antarctic? I often wondered. But the Arctos comes from, well, you can imagine, the Greek word for bear. And the Arctos is where giant man-eating bears live, the polar bear. And so what would be the Antarctos? Yeah, the anti-bear. There are no bears in Antarctica, just penguins, which the fearmongers claim are all going to die and burn up. But they've survived minus 50 degrees for quite some time now. In fact, the penguins have been there for 15 million years. Yet the idiots that are called journalists like to say that they're all going to die because it's really cold in Antarctica. The same thing happens for the polar bears. For 30 years, we've heard these so-called journalists claiming that polar bears are dying because of ice being reduced in the Arctic. Well, ice has reached a 13-year high in extent in the Arctic, and polar bears went from 6,600 individual known units to over 30,000 in just the last 3 decades. And that means that everything mainstream journalists have said about the Arctic and Antarctic is complete garbage, a falsehood, and has nothing to do with the truth. When you go from 6,600 polar bears to over 30,000 during the time of catastrophic loss of polar bears, you're either a liar or a complete idiot. What say you? Leave a comment below. A jade mask depicting Mayan storm god unearthed in a royal tomb in Guatemala. Lots of things being unearthed in Tulum in Mexico, and now a royal tomb in Guatemala. Take a look at the mosaic jade mask and human femur carving, just 2 of the items found inside the 1,700-year-old Mayan tomb, and they are some spectacular... Oh, well, let's get my face out of here. I don't even need to be here. Take a look at these artifacts. An amazing amount of detail on this bone fragment. The Mayan mask of the god is kind of pathetic, in my opinion. It really doesn't show any high technology, as many claim. But I do digress. I'm not against the Mayans. While this may be an interesting find, I don't think it proves anything about anything, to be quite honest. It shows that whoever was the Mayan culture around 1,700 years ago was not that smart or that skilled, because this mask, well, is quite pathetic, in my opinion. The carvings, nonetheless, are quite spectacular, but there is very little we know about these cultures, and what has been presented to you is nothing more than gobbledygook and lies from the money funders that found these artifacts. Now, what we do know is that this culture collapsed just a few hundred years after these artifacts, and the quality of this mask may have something to do with it. What say you? Join us tomorrow morning on our radio show, Revolution.radio, the #1 listener-supported radio channel on the internet, where we will discuss a very controversial topic, the Giza Plateau inundation. Here we see John Jessen Jr.'s version of it in 2016. We're going to talk about this paper and why he was partially fraudulent. This is how they do it. Some of the information is correct, some of it's not. There's no references, and then they go off on a tangent and they make up shit, and everyone believes it, similar to Ben Davidson. And that's a boom to knowledge. Please share this video, as we are shadow banned and we need your help to grow. We don't live in a nuclear strike zone according to where the number one preparedness guy is. And so there is that. So please support the channel. Become a Patreon. Support the work we do. We love you. Be safe. And never move to Denver unless you're an idiot. We'll see you at the seat exchange.